All right, everyone. It is Tuesday and Tuesday morning, and this is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way. We've got Tony and Kevin on today. The Grand Old Team podcast, of course, guys.
Launched
Getting
on
plaudits for
Sunday.
your performance. Yeah, people are loving it. People are loving you too. You must both be in one hell of a high right now.
I think the two of us are like Statler and Waldorf out the Muppets, for those that remember it, who sat in the balcony.
Thanks for being on a high. I'll find something to complain about.
Listen, there's lots to complain about, so I thought I'd open with the positivity of you guys having taken the channel by storm at the weekend with your new show. And I listened to it last night and enjoyed it. And I think you're planning a weekly occurrence, is that right?
Oh, it's going to be a weekly occurrence, yeah. Just keep it ticking over, talking about events and things, Kevin, of a Celtic nature, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of curiosities that people have forgotten about. Things that stick in your mind.
Yeah, in which we refuse to forget about, basically.
I've got a theory that when they come to cap me off and I'm sitting in a tartan blanket somewhere, I'll be singing the Harry Hood song in the middle of the night, or rhyming off all the Celtic Scottish Cup winners since 1892.
Brilliant. I'll be in the bed next to you, probably. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the things that stick with you through your life, and I think I'll be the same as you guys when I'm a little bit older. I already look back at seasons that people might think is relatively modern, but the things I remember from season 05, 06 and stuff like that is it's remarkable.
But just wanted to say as well, Hamish, thank you to everybody who's been very kind about episode 1. It's quite flattering and quite humbling when people tune in and they say nice things, so appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I think it was Nick Hornby that says your life in Fever Pitch, that said your life lived out in seasons, isn't it? It's that old joke, isn't it? Meet the wife or meet the girlfriend, we've been together for 18 seasons, that kind of thing, you know what I mean? So if you're football minded at all, it's just how it is, so there it is.
Fabulous. How are things generally, Kevin? Are you all right? I feel like you've not been on the morning briefing in a while.
A couple of weeks anyway. How am I feeling about the Hoops? I mean, I managed to catch most of the games in the States, and it's good. It's good to see them take a few goals off Chelsea and Man City, especially Man City, because I don't like Man City. I don't really much like Chelsea either.
Yeah.
But from what I saw, there was, obviously, like us, neither of these clubs were at anywhere near full strength, but they were strong enough. They were recognisable players. And from what I saw, these games, there was a degree of competitiveness that I think bodes well. And, well, for me, it kind of showed that Brendan Rodgers has been working on a few things with the players in what's already elapsed to the close season. They looked sharp against good players in a decent environment, and they were moving the ball really quickly. You could see that they've been working on a lot of things. So that's but you don't want to read too much into it, because we've had decent pre-seasons before, and you just can't read anything into it. But I'm still worried about our lack of activity in the transfer market, and I don't know if I should be. It's good to get the keeper in, which I think we all agreed the last time I was on. It was important to get a keeper in before the trip to America, so that he's fully bedded in, because I think, as both of you had pointed out in previous programmes, of all the positions that require strengthening, that's the one that was the most crucial.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've expected to see at least 2 more, oven-ready players in those key positions, principally left back and central defence. Well, also, at the moment, we've only got 1 striker as things stand. So I don't know, am I right to be worried? Because there was a piece by Matthew Lindsay in the Herald today, who do seem to be pointing out, look, there's nothing that much to worry about. Celtic always do their business at the end of the transfer window, usually towards the end of August. It's a tried and tested strategy. They only move when the price is right, and by and large, they've always got the good players. I think that these are good points. The only difference this time, though, is that there's still a lot of uncertainty over the future whereabouts of 2 of our best players, i.e. Haggerty and O'Reilly. It's all very well saying, yeah, we'll wait to the end of the transfer window and we'll get 2 or 3 really good players in, but there's a good chance we might be losing 2 of our own most influential players. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear what you've both got to say about it.
Listen, Kevin, feel like I've done nothing else over the past 2 months than sit and try and work out exactly why I feel and try and find I don't know if you agree, Tony, the hardest thing for me doing this has been trying to find the right balance, because you can only call it as it is right now, and we're a few days out from the start of the season, and we've not signed an outfielder, and we've spent £1 million when you know that we've got, let's just say a lot more than that in the bank, and we have guaranteed Champions League football, something that we're not going to have next season. So as fans, we wanted the club to push on, and obviously it's frustrating day by day going by and not having any movement. Like, I can't remember our transfer window being as quiet as this one. But then also I've got the thing in the back of my mind saying they do still have a month to bring players in, and we could still be looking at a really successful transfer window and a really successful season. And I'm a glass half full guy. I still think, and I want to think, that it's going to be a really good season and that we can do things in the Champions League, because that's how I think. And I'm wary of going all in on criticising everyone at the club only for them to get it right in August. But as we call it right now, it's just been such a disappointing window because nothing's happened apart from 2 goalkeepers in it. It's tough to sum up, Tony, while trying to kind of remain balanced to an extent.
I've written a piece that's going on the site tomorrow morning about O'Reilly, Haggerty and the board type thing. So look out for that. But the long and short of it is nobody does a transfer window like Celtic, do they? In that respect, I've started it by saying, in that respect, they are a club like no other. I said yesterday, everything should be so positive about Celtic, shouldn't it? You've taken 4 off Man City, you've taken 4 off Chelsea, you're playing a brand of football that you clearly see the managers worked on, the pennies dropping with the players that are there, and you should begin to this season, you've got a new goalkeeper, but there should be more new players there. You should be enthused about everything. Yet you look out the window, it's sunny, yet with Celtic, there's always isobars of depression, isn't there? It's just the way they are and the way they conduct their business. And as you see, you don't want to go all in on anybody. So all you have is the manager at face value saying, I expect us to be stronger by the end of the transfer window, the end of August. That's all that you're clinging to. That's the hope that you've got, Hamish, that they will turn it round. They will bring the players in that's needed, because the manager says he's identified the players in the positions. I think we all know what those positions are. If we can see it, then the manager surely can. And that is what you're clinging to now, because they are starting the season with more or less somebody else's team, the team that the manager's inherited. And as you say, Kevin, there's question marks over the 2 big pillars, midfield pillars of your team, O'Reilly and Haggerty.
What a player that would be.
Haggerty. A hybrid of the 2. And And you don't put it past Celtic to really do think, okay, there's real money to be had here, and you think yourself, you're resigning yourself that one of them might go, but then in the pit of your stomach, you're thinking they couldn't possibly let the two of them go. But with those that run the football club, anything is possible, especially if other clubs at the end of the window stump up the money that would get them round the table and get them, get people, both parties to talk. And I just start, and why should we be thinking like that? Because the hierarchy have got form. Yet everything about the club on the park has been really positive since, during the American tour. And I'm really looking forward to the start of the season. But there's just this big question mark, isn't there? And you're thinking the next 30 days can't go quick enough because you just want some kind of answers to all of those questions. Left back, centre back, striker, keeping both Haggerty and O'Reilly, which might not be possible now with all the jungle drums that are beating in all social media stories that you're reading and hearing and seeing. But why is it always like this? Why can Celtic not, have a transfer window where you go, wonderful, everything's perfect? And as I say, you're clinging on to the manager's words in the hope that they do turn it round and everything is, they do have a tremendous window. But it shouldn't be like this. It doesn't have to be like this, but it's always like this, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have evidence of 1-2 years ago where we did do our business early in the window. Carter Vickers in, Jota in, Bernabe in. All right, Bernabe didn't work out, but it was a signing that at the time we looked at and thought, right, left back in. And then, as I recall, later in the window, we then made some signings, but they weren't signings that absolutely had to be made. Aaron Moy was a signing that nobody before Aaron Moy signed, from my memory, was really looking and going, we really need another midfielder. Like, at the moment, we really need a left back, or we really need a centre back. I think Moritz Jens was another one, Haksabanovic. These were kind of finishing touches to the window. That's, for me, how a window should be done. You do your really important business early on. For us, goalkeeper, Ida, left back, centre back should have been done by now, and then in the last month of the window you look and say, right, okay, maybe another winger would be quite good, and we sort that. But as Swindle puts it, and this is a great comment, I think, Celtic are grand champions of sapping the enthusiasm from great situations. Is anyone really going to be overjoyed if we get Bernardo and Ida at this point? Listen, I'll be delighted if we get Bernardo and Ida in, but it'll be more relief at this stage. Whereas imagine they'd have been in for the first day of pre-season, the feeling we'd all had going into pre-season. It's they really are, as Swindle says, grand champions of sapping the enthusiasm from great situations, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean the other thing, Tony wrote a lovely article about the American tour in 1966 and how that laid the foundations for everything that happened later in that season. The team bonding, the esprit de corps, the togetherness, not least the kind of, getting used to the way that Jockstein wanted that Celtic team to play. So you're left thinking that, this European, the American tour was long in the planning, obviously, because these things have to be. So they were planning that tour probably for best part of a year, especially, when you see the detail of it, giving donations to local charities where they were playing. There was a lot of choreography about that tour on and off the park. But that level of detail obviously didn't extend to anything to do with the team, because if it had, and given that we've known since this January, what positions needed to be strengthened, that's what, coming on for 7 months, not an outfield player signed, and that American tour would have been the ideal place an ideal opportunity for new players to get to know their teammates and to get to know the way that Brendan Rodgers wants to play. And I think, as I said as well, that perversely, existing friendships would have been, deepened among certain players on a tour like that when you're living, in such close proximity with your teammates, away from home, and new kind of friendships would have been formed. So the kind of team spirit amongst that group has been strengthened. The downside of that is that if you get 3 or 4 players in a few weeks' time, then it means that two or three of that group, are going to be, left out. And that can, just on a very human level, it just leads to kind of difficulties on a very human and very emotional level, which we don't, we didn't need to go there. You can get a brilliant player in, 6-7 million quid, he instantly starts. But obviously somebody's nose is going to be out of joint. And it would have been far better on all levels if that player had come in at the start of the American tour and got to know his teammates. And, we've all seen it. We know how these things work. And I just cannot see any justification. I can't see really any rationale at this stage for not having done that. The Euros are long gone. We've got all that money in the bank. We've had it for a while. We've known the positions that need strengthening since January. We've got ahead of recruitment. Brendan Rodgers knows exactly what areas need to be strengthened. He's pledged several times, as you said, Hamish, not least just the other week, it's going to be strengthened, and yet here we are. Well, why would you operate like that?
Yeah, I mean, we just want a bit of ambition shown as fans, and as I say, August might see that, but just it could have been a lot. Most of the work could have been done by now. I think we all feel. D-Mac saying if we'd lost the league last season, I'm sure we'd be better prepared by now. Again, I think that's probably a fair bit of merit in that, because the board is reactive. They react to disappointment and other directors from other clubs goading them in directors' boxes and stuff like that before they really kind of push on with doing our own thing, rather than just looking to be the best thing we can be. Jim wondering when you have to register your players for Europe. I believe it's the week before our first European game, so it'll be after the end of the transfer window, Jim. Ian saying, we do have a month, but we have an important game as of Sunday. Take your point totally. And Mark's given up on transfer activity for a more exciting pastime, watching paint dry. Good stuff, Mark. Hazel, on a more positive note, she prefers this season's hoops kit. It is a cracker. Clutch on to the positives, Hazel, in terms of off the pitch stuff. The thing is, and it's almost as if we're talking after a Celtic defeat. The team looked really good in pre-season, and I cannot wait to see them in action on Sunday. And I think we're going to make a really fast start to the season, Tony.
Are we going to have is it time for our occasional Mikey Johnson discussion?
Well, I'm needing to nip and make a coffee if you guys are doing that. I don't think I've got that in me again, to be honest. And I don't know if you do either, Tony.
Most certainly not. Most certainly not. Yeah. Listen, I think that's the positives that you're also clinging to as well. The fact that they played really well. Granted, it's pre-season, but there was, you saw a pattern there, didn't you? You saw a style of play. I mentioned the 3 Ps that Brendan talks about: pace, power and penetration. You saw players with a decent first touch. You saw Haggerty keeping the ball and distributed it wisely, and learning from the fact that the manager said he has to improve on his ball retention and not giving it away. You saw that. You saw Riley just being imperious. You saw Kyogo back in the goals trail. You saw a wonderful 45-minute cameo from Kuhn, which left you, champing at the bit to see more of him. Diaz and Maeda looked good. McGregor looked typical McGregor. Cameron Carter-Vickers came back in, solidifies that defence. Kasper Schmeichel, you're just like, he'll do. After about 10 minutes, you were just like, he'll do. And you saw his frustration at losing the first goal against Manchester City. He was beside himself that the ball spun so awkwardly into the net, and you just think to yourself, wow, that guy just hates losing goals. He'd be murdering training, wouldn't he, as well? But so all of these things are just like brilliant. What you wanted to see was just some new blood being integrated into that, as Kevin was saying, and them playing their part. And the commenter that said they're the champs at sucking the lifeblood out at times, they are. But I think you have to also accentuate the positives, and I think we're getting into the start of the season, granted, with a squad that we thought we wouldn't be. We thought it would be freshened up. But I'm certainly confident that Celtic can get off to a flyer and hit the ground running against Kilmarnock on Sunday. I'm looking forward to them doing that against a team who will do the low block and try and stifle you from playing. That's where they came unstuck a couple of times last season, but got the job done in the end. But people are saying not everybody's Chelsea and Manchester City because they come out to play against you. Teams like Kilmarnock and others will sit in, and so that's what I want to see. I want to see Celtic use that pace, power and penetration and hurt teams and show that it can work equally as well at home.
Yeah.
And if it can work at home, then you think to yourself, good, it could possibly work abroad because teams do come out to play, and the calibre of opposition you'll be playing in the Champions League, they're going toe-to-toe. So I want to see it work on them both domestically and in Europe, hopefully. So I'm excited to see the team and who he plays on Sunday, but it's also tempered with August is going to be a hell of a long month, isn't it?
It is, and work needs to be done. This is I think a comment again I agree with from Thomas, but it's a ridiculous kind of concept to consider. Very happy with our style of play going into the new season. It's much quicker than last season. I'm concerned our board may think we don't need to strengthen. Like, do you realise what Thomas is saying there? And as I say, I agree with the comment, but the fact that just because we've looked in pre-season as fans, we have a fear that the board might look at that and go, well, we maybe don't need to strengthen the same areas because we've looked good in pre-season. And again, that goes back,
That's a very interesting comment on a couple of levels. One, I hope not, because I'm assuming that Brendan Rodgers has a lot more agency. Has a lot of agency now in and about the club, and he just wouldn't settle for that mindset. However, putting my old Celtic Daz hat on again, we faced a situation like this going into the 1986-87 season. Celtic had just won the league at Love Street, one of our iconic victories against all the odds. Didn't really strengthen. There was a lot of talk about going for Stevie Clark, who at that point was an outstanding centre half. I think had he gone to Chelsea by then, Tony?
He had, there was talk of Joe McLaughlin and Pat Nevin as well. Those were the three signings that Stevie Hay was denied, I believe.
And of course, that was the start of the soonest spending revolution. But for the first 3 or 4 months of that season, Celtic played really well. And come Christmas, we were top of the league. And Davy Hay, who was the manager, was going to the board and saying, we this is good, but we need to strengthen. And, I've targeted Stevie Clark. That transfer could be done to strengthen the middle of the Celtic defence. And Davy Hay will tell you that he was told, well, you can, if you want to go and get him, you can pay for him out of your own pocket. lo and behold, we get beaten 3-0 at Ibrox by Rangers, and Rangers go on and win the title. And it was that
Celtic were 9 points ahead at one point, weren't they? Celtic were 9 ahead. And I think, David, he had to say that 3 players he targeted, and they said to him, go and buy them with your own money, and that was Joe McLaughlin, Stevie Clark and Pat Nevin. That's the 3 he wanted.
And it was that mindset that, oh, well, maybe we don't need to strengthen because, we've had a good start of the season when we're the league champions, even though the rest of us, while we were overjoyed at winning the league in the last day of the season, we also knew that the massive gaps that still had to be filled, because really that should have been Hearts' title. So you can't discount that. You can't discount that mentality, because it's the same sort of people that run the board. It's the same. You've seen that same mentality. Oh, we only need to worry about Rangers, and because Rangers are and don't have their challenges to seek at the moment on all sorts of levels, you can just see that complacency. Oh, as long as we're ahead of Rangers, we win the title. We're hopefully overtake their league championship haul. And then the Champions League can look after itself, because Brendan's got the boys playing well. And, remember that first half against Real Madrid, etc., etc. We were unlucky against Lazio and Atletico Madrid. I can absolutely see that mindset. And I'm just hoping that Brendan Rodgers has far more power and far more agency than many of his predecessors, and that he just simply wouldn't stand for that. But it's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. Just in terms of specifics, I don't expect us to take too long in this, Tony. Matt O'Reilly chat. Southampton in for Matt O'Reilly again. And I think a report from down south saying that Southampton player by the name of Shea Charles, Northern Ireland international, former Man City player, left Man City for Southampton for just over 10 million this time last year. Talk that he could be used as part of the deal for O'Reilly going to Southampton. So I guess it would be a transfer fee plus Shea Charles to Celtic and Matt O'Reilly to Southampton. I'm not, without knowing a great deal about him, I'm not totally convinced about this. I think for me, if Southampton want Matt O'Reilly, pay the money for him. Yeah,
central defensive midfielder, Shea Charles, Northern Irish international, as you say. I think Brendan will be well aware of him, but it strikes me as being certainly not like for like, is it? For a start, and it seems to me kind of a cut price way of Southampton try to chance their arm, see if they can, come to some sort of deal. I just kind of looked briefly at Shea Charles, and he's highly rated, but I think if you look around at the mood music, which I always talk about, Celtic supporters are not having it at all. They don't want that to happen. And I think, to me, if we're talking about the board, see, the biggest ambition that they could show is just to keep Haggerty and O'Reilly in situ for this season. That's the biggest ambition that they could show. And it wouldn't exempt them from or give them a pass for not spending money on players, but certainly turn out and put out a message there and say, nah, they're not going anywhere. No, they're with us. We want to keep them. And until you hit that trigger fee, that 30 million or whatever it is they want for O'Reilly, and whatever X amount of millions they want for Haggerty, we're not even going to bother speaking to you. That's where we're at with that. So my ambition, and I would hope that they would match it, is just to say, no, these players are staying for a year. Brendan's trying to build something. We're trying to do something in Europe, and they're pivotal to what we're trying to achieve in this new format, the Champions League, for the first year. And it's just the way I see things. And I think that would be, that would be send out the most powerful message yet in terms of your ambition. Why do we have to sell O'Reilly and Haggerty? Why entertain, other players, who are maybe not as good? We don't have to. Guy's in a long-term deal at Celtic. He doesn't seem to be agitating for a move. So we hold a lot of ace cards here, and we want to use them to our benefit. And I think I'd like to think, excuse me, that Kevin was there as well. That Brendan Rodgers has some agency here, and he can say to them, "Look, I'm not standing for this. These guys have to stay. These guys have the two of them. I think we're all resigning ourselves, aren't we? That one of them might go, but I think it'd be a huge statement if Celtic turn and say they two are staying, or they stay, and then also before the end of the window they bring in X, Y, Z. That could all still happen, and flip your mindset on it. But there is that word we used yesterday, ominous, and a foreboding sense of doom about it. But it can still be flipped in our favour, and you could come out the window thinking, "Yeah, beauty." But there's a lot to do, isn't there? And you just feel that there's not the will upstairs, and there's not the ambition that the three of us sitting here and many millions out there who support the club have for the club.
What you would do to hear the conversations behind closed doors between Brendan Rodgers and Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay? I'd love to know if they're getting a bit heated at all, and if Brendan Rodgers is saying, "No, I absolutely need this," because let's be honest, they've kind of all got egos to an extent, don't they? And they all want their own thing. So you'd think that would be the case. But yeah, keeping Matt O'Reilly. Listen, I don't think Hatate's going to leave. I could be wrong. I really hope I'm not wrong. I think O'Reilly will leave. I don't think Celtic could possibly sell both. And I know. All I need to say is I know. But I just don't think it would happen. Maybe I'm naive. Anything else on transfers, Kevin, before we talk about Hibs reducing our allocation briefly?
I think, I agree. I think it's unlikely Hatate will go. However, English Premiership clubs will have seen those games in the States.
Yeah.
And they'll have seen the way that those two players played. And towards the end of the what applies to us for the end of the transfer window also applies to a lot of clubs in the Premiership. Because there'll be certain clubs down there whose fans will be having the same conversations as we are. And they'll have seen those games. And, there will be recruitment people, with videos of the games against Manchester City and Chelsea going, "Look at these two." So I'm still optimistic that at least by the end of August, I just can't contemplate that by the 31st of August, we will not have a new left back, a new centre half, and another striker. That's all I'm saying.
I can. I think it's entirely conceivable, and it's also conceivable that not either or, but both those players that you mentioned, but both of those players after that show in America, the price is going one way, isn't it? Up the way. But you just dread it coming to the last week and then somebody just coming in, because those clubs, as you mentioned, Kevin, are awash with cash. And it's the kind of last minute bid that, gets the heads turned and gets you round the table, which I'm worried about. That the Celtic board said, "You know what? We could do business at that." That's your fear, isn't it? And kind of pulling the rug from under the manager right at the last minute of the window, that kind of thing.
There was a danger of that last year, wasn't there? Because it was that Leeds came in late for Matt O'Reilly, prior to Matt O'Reilly being the Matt O'Reilly that we know now, and it was probably like 10 million or that kind of figure for Matt O'Reilly, and the club did turn that down. So maybe there's evidence there that they do have a line, but I know what you mean, Tony, if the big money comes in. I think Matt O'Reilly is obviously for sale. I guess every Celtic player is for sale, but I think if you lose O'Reilly, you can't lose Hatate. You just can't, because you're dicing with death this season if you lose both of them, especially late in the window. Just in terms of Hibs, and again, I don't want to spend ages on this because what can we do about it? Come to think of it, what can we do about anything, guys? But Celtic announced yesterday that we've received a reduced allocation of tickets for our trip to Easter Road a week on Sunday. We've received 2,930 tickets, so call it 3,000. The previous game there, we received 3,600, so I think that's like a 20% reduction. Hibs obviously announced this, I think, back in January or February, saying that they would be reducing all away followings. It was after a game against Rangers, funnily enough. So that's the way things work out. But it's just more evidence of the death of the away day in Scottish football, I guess. And Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, Kilmarnock, St Mirren, Motherwell, Aberdeen, I believe there may be more, have all reduced their away allocation in recent years. And you kind of question at what point, Kevin, did Celtic do something about this, and at what point does it just all become a bit too much for us? Because like we bring so much to the country in terms of like our support going to all of these grounds and towns, and yes, there's occasional trouble, and I know there's pyro and stuff like that. That's a whole different debate. But at what point did we actually all go back? Right, this is a bit too much now.
Well, any future television deal, if I'm a television executive negotiating a deal with the league, I'm looking at the footage and saying, so you want X amount? Why should we pay? Why should we pay what you're looking for when most of these games all we see is empty spaces? I mean, I can guarantee that against Hibs a week on Sunday, that the rest of it won't be a sellout. I might be wrong. You know, it's the start of the season.
It won't be a sellout.
But in all of these games, apart from Rangers at Ibrox, in all of these games where we're playing clubs who have reduced our, the away allocation, you see these, gaping holes in the home terrace and the home stands, and that's when the league and basically say, well, we're not portraying our game in the best possible light. That's apart from the fact that the travelling experience, the away day experience has been integral. It's all over Europe as part of football. This is anti-football. I really don't know what purpose it serves. I know that the clubs think that it gives their teams a better chance, if they've got fewer Celtic or Rangers fans there. But I don't really think there's been a pattern of results in the clubs that have done that bears that out. I might be wrong, but I don't think any of those clubs over a couple of years can say, our results have been better against Celtic and Rangers since we reduced their allocation.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the results. I think you're right. I think there's probably not been a substantial change at all in them. I think Pete's asking what's the thinking behind reduced away allocations. Kind of from what I understand from these clubs, and I guess the Rangers issue is slightly different. We all know the kind of motives behind why they initially cut our allocation. I think these clubs don't want their home grounds to be taken over by our fans, or certainly that's the reason they use. My issue with that is you just end up with empty seats around the ground, and a week on Sunday you're going to have an empty patch, quarter of that stand, a third of that stand, just empty seats, and the game, as you say, is live on Sky. And listen, I made this point earlier, I don't actually absolve Celtic of all blame with regards to empty seats and stuff, because we have empty seats at our home ground quite often for matches. Like virtually every match you go to, apart from derbies and European games, there'll be empty seats around the stadium, and the club claim it's a sellout, and they don't have any kind of ambition clearly to implement some sort of ticket exchange system. So we're not perfect either at making stadiums full, but to me this is just a different issue, and it's just a shame, Tony, because fans are the lifeblood of Scottish football, probably more so than any other football nation, to be honest.
I know players hated playing on it, and the record wasn't so great, but you look at Livingston, who just said, yeah, come on your hordes. And Joe Hart commented that whenever they played Livingston, it was like a home game. I mean, it was a small ground, but the atmosphere was always electric at Livingston. Granted, the surface was rotten, but they had the right idea.
They had some good results against us.
Correct,
didn't they?
Right?
And
Kevin, that's what I'm saying. Granted, the pitch might have had a lot to do with that, the surface. That's fair enough, but at least Livingston have adopted the right approach. How many you want to come in? Great, just come in, take over the place. It's great. Because at the end of the day, everybody, it's that old cliche, innit? Fans don't score goals. Yeah, they can make a difference in terms of atmosphere, but it was always, whenever Celtic Rangers went there, it was always full and it was always live on the telly, so it captured the game in a decent light.
Yep.
Surface apart. But, you were always playing to a packed house at Livingston, so can't understand why club, it's their prerogative and it's their business how many away fans they let in. Can't dictate to them what they do, but I just find it strange in this day and age that, frustrating. And we always talk about Scottish football selling itself short. I just think it's short-sightedness as well. We want to portray our game in the best possible light, and it's an easy stick to beat you with, isn't it? When people down south or wherever look at it and say, well, whenever your games are on the telly, there's nobody there. Yeah. It's just like, and it's hard to argue, or you're plenty empty seats, and it's hard to argue against that, isn't it? And as I say, it's up to individual clubs to decide how many away fans they let in. But this increased cutting of Celtic's allocation, I just don't think it does anybody any favours in the long run. Let alone the TV companies as well, they must be sick of it. And I think at some point they might have to intervene and say, right, look, what's going on here?
Yeah. Oh, you wonder if things will just get to the stage where they get really messy and Celtic would maybe start just not taking any tickets at all. Kind of like what happened with the stuff with Rangers. I know there was safety stuff that was the kind of big issue there. But it's frustrating, guys. Very frustrating. Listen, we might return to that topic at some stage. A nice cheery one today. Just a big thanks to MPH Boilers Weissman for sponsoring this video. As you know, MPH are an award-winning team. They're family run and they serve all of mainland Scotland. So if you're in mainland Scotland, they're the people to go to for boiler installations and service. And they've partnered with Weissman as well. Links will be in the description. Anything else, guys, before we head off?
It's the last day of the deal, Hamish, to win the home jersey. It's the last day, guys. You know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. £1 for 6 months of access to everything that's written on the website, and you could win that signed home 2023-24 Celtic shirt from the double winners. As I say, the deal expires today. It's open to all existing subscribers who will be automatically entered into the draw, and new subscribers, you'll also be entered into the draw. So hit the button, guys, and put yourself in with a chance of winning that. It's a fabulous prize.
Fabulous stuff. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll chat to you this time.